Bienvenidos. Welcomes. That's an example of the way I'm going to be teaching Spanish, taking each word and translating it literally. That's the way I learn, and that's the way I think about Spanish, and that's the way I like to teach it. We're going to start today with a very common greeting, hola. There are a lot of theories of where this may have come from, but it definitely means hello. And you'll notice two things right away. One is that I didn't pronounce the H, so it's not hola, but hola. And that's true of any Spanish word that begins with H. You don't pronounce that letter. The other thing you'll notice is that there's an upside down exclamation point in front of the word and then a regular exclamation point at the end of the word. In Spanish, if you have an exclamation, it lets you know at the beginning of the sentence or the word with an upside down mark. The same is true with a question, and you'll see that later. Next, here's one of the most common questions in Spanish, and it's, what is your name? Now here's a deeper example of the way that I'm teaching, because the actual Spanish words do not mean what is your name. The words are cómo te llamas. Now you see that it begins with an upside down question mark that lets you know right away that it's a question, and it ends with a right side up question mark. The three words are cómo, which means how, te, which means yourself, and llamas, which means you call. So really this phrase means how, yourself, you call. Now of course that's not the way we would say it in English, but hopefully it makes sense why I'm teaching it this way so that you know what the words really mean. One note here is that the first O in the word como has an accent over it. That means that you emphasize that part of the word. So rather than como, which is a different word, it's como. Another aspect you'll see in this question is a double L, which makes a y sound, like a Y in English. So cómo te llamas. And the last thing you might notice is in this case, two English words, you call, are represented by one Spanish word, llamas. So what I want to do here is say each word and leave some space for you to repeat it to yourself afterward. And then I'll say the whole phrase, and you can repeat the whole phrase. Here we go. Cómo te llamas? ¿Cómo te llamas? Now to answer this question, you're going to say me llamo, and then your name. In this case, I'll say Graham. Me llamo Graham. These three words in literal translation mean myself, I call Graham. One thing to notice here is that in order to change llamas, which we learned in the question, which means you call, to llamo, which means I call, all we had to do was change the AS on the end of llamas to an O on the end of llamo. That's the way so many verbs work in Spanish, and we'll go into that in other lessons. So to review this lesson, I'll remind you what we learned, and I'll say the words again, leaving space once again for you to repeat them. If there's more than one word, I'll then say the whole phrase, and you can repeat that. First we learned hola, and that's how you say hello. Then we learned cómo te llamas? ¿Cómo te llamas? And that's how you ask someone what their name is. And then finally we learned me llamo, and then your name. Me llamo. And that's how you say what your name is. Thank you very much for joining me in this lesson, and I'll see you in the next one.